Hey, how does it feel to lose a husband who earns $200,000 a year? Looking at my face, my sister grinned. It was supposed to be a celebration for my childbirth, but she didn't care. She didn't bring any gifts, and confessed to having an affair with my husband without any remorse. Honestly, he is head over heels in love with me, can't you see? You have always been inconsiderate and shabby, and you have no charm as a woman. It's really a pity that he had been married to such a person until now. Do you think you can mess up someone's family and get away with it? As I glared at her, she even seemed to enjoy that. Being a dumped wife must feel really miserable. That's all you can say, isn't it? Why don't you look at yourself in the mirror? You can see the meanness sticking to your face. What kind of person are you? This is my great reversal in life. I can spend as much money as I want. I can pay any amount for child support. After all, Daniel is an elite with an annual income of $200,000. $10,000 or $20,000 is nothing to him. Right, Daniel? As my sister turned to look at my husband who was present, he started trembling. As soon as our eyes met, he suddenly knelt down. I'm sorry. His voice suddenly echoed, and the one who was most taken aback was my sister. Huh? At that moment, I reached into my pocket for something I had hidden. When I attached it to the front of my shirt, my sister's face turned pale instantly. My name is Tiffany. I am a so-called working homemaker, balancing both household and job duties. Daniel and I had been married for 5 years. I wonder whether those 5 years were long or short. I personally felt it was quite a long journey. We had been wanting children since we got married. Both of us were 31 at the time, still a viable age for having children, but creating a warm family with children had always been one of my dreams. A common wish. However, I had difficulty conceiving since we started our married life. We went to the hospital and both of us were tested, but there were no abnormalities. Eventually, you will conceive. The doctor optimistically predicted, but we had to keep trying to conceive for a very long time. After 5 years, when I finally got pregnant, the joy of us was indescribable. Finally, a baby was coming to us. Rubbing my belly, we thanked God over and over. At the time, I was working full-time, but gradually reduced my workload, preparing for maternity leave. I was busy at work and I felt a sense of loss as tasks slipped through my fingers one after another, but what mattered most was the child in my belly. Luckily, our combined household income was substantial, and we had saved enough money. Daniel said, I will work even harder from now on. True to his word, he seemed to be investing 20% more effort into his work. I was actually worried about him overworking. I entered the stable period, and a month before the due date, I took a leave from my job. But then, my father got sick and I decided to take care of him at my parents' house. Initially, Daniel, who didn't like being alone, was not happy about that. But he gave in when I convinced him it would be a month at the longest. I'm going to miss you, Tiffany. While I felt his attitude was somewhat unreliable, it also endeared him to me, and I vowed to fulfill my duties as a pregnant woman for his sake too. When I crossed the threshold of my parents' home after a long time. Hi, Tiffany. Long time no see. My sister Erica was there at our parents' home. I was surprised by her sudden appearance, especially since we hadn't seen each other for nearly a decade. Actually, I didn't even know if my sister was still alive. Our parents felt the same, as she had left home almost like an elopement 10 years ago. Her partner was an unemployed man who used to be a nightclub worker. At that time, Erica seemed to be really into him, investing all the money she had earned herself, and even reaching into our parents' funds, which led to them disowning her. About 10 years since then. Without any contact even once a year, I had no way to tell her that I had gotten married, let alone about my pregnancy. When this Erica suddenly appeared at our parents' home, I was surprised and had a bad feeling. One reason was that we had never been close sisters. Moreover, seeing her more rugged appearance after 10 years, I even felt a sense of disgust. What? Are you pregnant? Such a big belly. I'm almost at full term. More importantly, what have you been doing all this time? You ran away from home like you eloped, and it's been 10 years. You never even contacted us once. Well, I was disowned, right? Dad and Mom yelled at me, never show your face again. I couldn't come back. That's because you tampered with the house money. I know. I said I'd pay it back and reflect on it, so they allowed me to stay at home again. Maybe the youngest daughter is always the dearest, huh? What about the man you were with? Oh, I broke up with him long ago. That penniless guy. After devouring my savings and even going into debt, he started messing around with another woman. Her face as she said this was dangerously glittering. It was not the face of the sister I knew. She had always been badly behaved, but seeing her after a long time, she was completely clad in a negative aura due to her rough life. Intimidated, I couldn't say anything more. Well, it's all in the past. Let's let bygones be bygones and get along as sisters. I'll be living in this house from now on too. In this house? Yeah, that's right, Tiffany. Thus began our life at our parents' house, but honestly, I only felt stress. Of course, the cause was Erica's presence. She had said we should get along, but that promise was never kept. Erica, who pursued her selfishness, lived a life without caring at all about family life. Especially as a pregnant woman, I wished she would be considerate, but she made noise even late at night and hardly got up in the morning. She was nothing but a slothful daughter parasitizing at home, with everything provided for her. Yet, she showed no remorse at all. Her reasoning was summed up in one point. Well, I'm working, unlike you, right? Erica did have a temp job, and she left for work at fixed times during the day. There was also a promise to our parents to repay the money. It seemed that she felt she was contributing financially to the house, which, on the contrary, made her confront me, who was on leave. Pregnant or not, you're just unemployed and crushing life, right? Eating, sleeping, and just wandering around every day. This is necessary for the baby in my belly. This is the most crucial time. Yeah. Pregnant women are so great, huh? Tiffany, you're always so sneaky. With a snort, she glared at my big belly. It seemed she was upset that our parents were paying more attention to me. My worried mother suggested to me one day. Maybe you should explain to Erica that you're on leave. She's nagging about you being unemployed. If she knows you work too, maybe her attitude will change a bit. It's okay, Mom. Whatever she thinks of me. It would only complicate things more. I want to focus solely on giving birth. I'm just worried she might do something reckless. I understood what my mother was saying, but I didn't want to wear myself out over my sister anymore. The baby was going to be born very soon. I wanted to be a strong mother at any time. For that, I couldn't afford to be bothered by Erica's antics. One day, a week before my due date, Daniel came to visit me at my parents' home. He seemed uncomfortable in someone else's home and was nervous throughout the visit. However, he was sharply dressed in a suit. I couldn't help but laugh inside at his attempt to look good. Nice to meet you. I'm Erica, her sister. The one who approached my husband with a cooing voice was Erica, all dolled up. She usually didn't wear such heavy makeup when she went to work. Now, she was fully made up and wearing a dress with a low neckline. Seeing him clearly flustered, I quickly stepped in. Erica. Isn't it time for you to be at work? Daniel won't be staying long either. What? I finally get to meet my brother-in-law, so why can't we have a nice long chat? Your husband is such a wonderful man, isn't he? He looks great in a suit, and he seems so kind. A big difference from my ex. Don't bring up weird stories here.
Hehe.
And you earn a lot, right? I heard you are a lawyer. I've always admired smart people. Daniel seemed quite pleased with the sparkling gaze directed at him. He blatantly ogled, even staring at my sister's exposed cleavage. I was so appalled that I smacked him on the buttocks hard. I sent him straight home. If he just wanted to see my face, his business here was done. Well then, I'm off to work too. I felt a twinge of anxiety as my sister left the house following my husband. But I couldn't go after her. More than that, I felt suddenly exhausted. I later heard from my mother. Apparently, she had privately warned my sister that it was not right to ridicule her sister as unemployed. After that, it seems she also accidentally let slip about our household income and the details of our jobs. She had spoken quite vaguely, but it was unclear how my sister interpreted that. At least in her eyes, it appeared that Daniel was seen as a man of means. In hindsight, I should have been more cautious at that moment. Then, perhaps no one would have gotten hurt later. A week passed, and I finally went into labor. It was a painful night and day. However, when it was over, I felt unparalleled happiness. Our long-awaited baby. Though only 90 ounces and a bit small, the baby looked more precious than any jewel to me. If there was one concern, it was that my husband didn't make it on time for the delivery. We had discussed and decided together that he would be there on the day of birth. Our child. That's why I wanted him to witness the moment of birth thoroughly. However, he arrived at the hospital an hour after the baby was born. Why were you late? Work got in the way. Just 5 minutes later, Erica showed up, and I sensed something was off. Could these two be? After the enormous task of giving birth, I realized I had yet another issue to resolve. Afterward, I was like a demon in how I handled things. Of course, I kept my resentment well hidden. After the postpartum period, we arranged a celebration at my parents' home. Not only my husband, but also his parents and many relatives were invited to the celebration. And there, quite nonchalantly, was my sister. That day, too, my sister was dressed up excessively. It was unclear who the main character was, and what's worse, she clung tightly to my husband's side and wouldn't leave. I did not miss the meaningful glances they exchanged. I have something to say to everyone. At the peak of the gathering, I stood up and raised my voice. The attendees, faces flushed from the alcohol, stared at me. Although this is a joyful celebration, I have something important to announce. Today, I am divorcing my husband, Daniel. The faces of the relatives all looked as if they couldn't close their mouths in shock. Only my parents, who had been briefed in advance, looked at him with sullen expressions. As for him, he looked utterly clueless about what was being said. I continued with more probing details. It's embarrassing to admit, but my husband repeatedly cheated on me while I was struggling with pregnancy and childbirth. I hired a detective agency, and I have obtained evidence of his infidelity. I will show everyone photos later, including him entering a short-stay hotel with another woman and kissing her on the street at night. And believe it or not, the woman he cheated with is my own sister. Erica. With her name called out, all eyes turned to Erica. My sister, who was clinging close to my husband, might as well have admitted her guilt just by that action alone. In fact, she laughed unabashedly. Tiffany, you really do bold things. Exposing your own shame in front of the relatives. Telling everyone that you were cheated on right after giving birth, that's a shame that will last generations. I wanted to make you realize all the betrayals you've committed. Betrayal sounds so harsh. I just fell in love with Daniel. Who can complain about a loving act? How can you even say that? You stole my husband, didn't you? And that while I was giving birth. I will never forget you two visiting the maternity ward together. Absolutely right. I admit it because I feel sorry for you. Yes, while you were giving birth, we were making love in a nearby hotel. Sorry, Tiffany. While you were having a baby, we were making one. Erica. What kind of person are you? What? I'm just admitting what you wanted to hear. You got dumped by a brilliant husband earning $200,000 a year. She laughed triumphantly and took a big swig of her beer. The surrounding relatives were speechless in disbelief. Undisturbed by the atmosphere, she continued. Honestly, I can't stand that a plain Jane like you got a high-earning husband. You are just a gloomy old woman. In contrast, I'm beautiful and still young. It's natural for Daniel to be drawn to me. He even said in bed that he wasn't confident about life with his wife. I don't want to hear about your affairs. Is that sour grapes? You're in for a tough time. You'll have to raise a baby as a single mother now. Really, poor child. To lose a father because of the mother's selfishness. Be prepared, Erica. I intend to claim substantial child support from you and him. I will show no mercy. Under the law, you both will see hell. Please, do sue for child support or whatever. I will have a husband making $200,000 a year. $10,000? $20,000? If you beg on the ground asking for money, maybe I'll throw in a little extra. Right, Daniel? Called in a cooing voice, he stood by her side, his face pale. His hands were trembling. Erica looked puzzled and called, Daniel? But my husband showed no reaction. As soon as our eyes met, he instantly knelt down and cried out. I'm sorry. To everyone's surprise, it was Erica who was taken aback the most. What's the matter, Daniel? Why are you suddenly kneeling down? This is all I can do. I have nothing but apologies. Come on, get a grip. Didn't you say you'd handle it if things got legal? I'm a lawyer. I'll face any lawsuit. You told me to leave everything to you. That was all a lie. Just nonsense, I spouted off. It was supposed to be just a fling. All just nonsense? At that moment, as Erica froze, I decided to reveal my trump card. I took a badge out of my jacket pocket. I pinned the badge to the front of my shirt for everyone to see. The badge was engraved with symbols of equality by a set of scales. What is that? Even Erica seemed to understand what the badge represented at this point. Yes, this is a badge allowed only for lawyers. What? Why? Big sister, you're supposed to be unemployed. I don't know how you came to misunderstand me as unemployed, but as you can see, I am a lawyer currently on leave. Once childcare settles down, I certainly plan to return to work. So, the $200,000 income is. That was my income before I took leave. What did he tell you? That he was the lawyer and the high earner? That was just nonsense to appeal to you. Daniel is a paralegal, in other words, an office worker. Daniel and I met at our workplace. Even then, there was a buzz about our income disparity. Marriage, but I always tried to refrain from judging a partner based on income or status. Please, Tiffany. Forgive me. It was just a moment of weakness. After you went to your parents' house, I felt lonely and just. Of all people, you chose my sister as your affair partner. Being flattered as a lawyer must have felt good, huh? Since you had your fun, it's only right that you face the consequences. I will divorce you and make sure to get a substantial amount of child support. You know I specialize in divorce cases, don't you? So that's how it is, Erica. Feel free to marry him or keep him as your gigolo if you like. I'm no longer interested. Of course, after you've paid me the money. Tiffany, no kidding. I'm your only sister, right? I don't want this lying man either. Please, not the child support. I'm still burdened with debts from my previous boyfriend. The lawsuit has already been filed in court. Prepare yourself. That was all I had to say. I concluded and left the room. Afterwards, I had no interest in how the relatives dealt with my husband and my sister. Some time passed. I officially completed my divorce from my husband. He dragged his feet until the end, but when I hinted at raising the child support, he eventually signed the divorce papers crying. He well knew how skilled a lawyer I was when it actually went to court. Burdened with a hefty child support, Daniel is apparently struggling a lot. Of course, he was fired from the law firm. A man who cheats during his wife's childbirth would naturally be dismissed from any law firm. I hope he reflects and lives more honestly in the future. As for my sister Erica, she too was kicked out of the house and is now wandering homeless. She had already broken up with Daniel. I had learned about it from the multiple calls to my smartphone from my sister. Erica claims she was deceived and is a victim. Feeling sorry for her, I referred her to a law firm. If her claims are valid, surely a competent lawyer will lend a hand. Though I doubted she could afford the legal fees. I have returned to work and am handling my duties just as vigorously as before. At home, I care for my beloved daughter. With my parents helping out, my life is going smoothly. I am discussing with my parents about going to a fancy restaurant for my daughter's first birthday. With the child support from Daniel and Erica, we can afford to splurge. I am thoroughly enjoying my daughter's growth.